We will go live momentarily. Going to be talking about trucking business, owner operators, taxes, business structures. Two minutes. Two minutes and we will be live. For those of you on TikTok, here in a minute, we're going live on YouTube. So you guys get to see the same thing. I believe you can even turn your phone landscape and you get to see, because I'm going to have some slides and presentations here. This is more formatted, for YouTube and Facebook. But you guys go to see it all. I will take questions at the end. We'll do Q&A at the end, but I've got a lot of information to cover. It is 8:00. Good evening, lunatics. Welcome to the Looney Bin. We are Blue Ribbon Logistics. I'm Chris. We're going to talk about our business structure. Okay. I have had a very, very frustrating week on social media. It started with 1099 versus W-2 for company drivers, and then it completely went off the rails. And what in the hundreds, I don't know, maybe 1,000 comments that came through on these different videos, the basic issue that I'm seeing here is that we don't have a really good understanding of just what basic business structures are. Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight is basic business structures. Our primary audience, our primary focus is on the first time owner operator. All right. That's what we're dealing with. That's what we're about. That's what our mission is to help the first time owner operator get through that period, because y'all, the statistics do not lie. 95% of first time owner operators fail in the first 2 years. And it's not because they can't drive trucks. It's not because they can't shift gears or back into docks. It's not because they have a Volvo versus a Peterbilt. It's because they don't know how to set up and run a business. Okay. Now, there is so much more to what we're going to talk about. I want to try to hit the basics. What I want to try to do is ignite some curiosity in you so that you will go, okay, I heard that term he was talking about. And then you're going to go research it for yourself. Okay. And because you know how the algorithms go, God help us all. Because I started talking about some of these issues, now I'm being flooded. My algorithm's being flooded with all the gurus and all the 10-step strategies to listen. There are some legitimate, interesting, and exciting strategies that you can use, that the rich people use. Okay. That stuff's real. Okay. But we got to get out of first gear. Okay. A lot of this very, very complex tax strategy that you hear people talking about, it doesn't apply to about 90% of us. Okay. I'd like to get you there. I'd like to get me in that 10%. How about that? I'd like to get us to the place where stuff like that matters, like revocable living trusts and all of these different, very complicated, high level strategies. That stuff's legitimate. Okay, I'm not here to say that it's not. But in the building blocks of our business, set that stuff aside. Okay. And then when it's time, how about we go sit down with an actual estate planning attorney? How about we go sit down with a highly qualified CPA and talk about tax strategies and uh, 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 all of these very complicated things. How about we sit down and talk with the professionals, um, and let the TikTok gurus sell their 1995 course? Okay, let them do their thing. Um, we got to get back to the basics. Okay, and listen, the basics are not very difficult to understand, but we all share in the same problem, and that's that the starting line that we came from was American government schools, of which I'm not a fan. Okay. Haven't been a fan for 30 years since I graduated from one. But this stuff is not covered. Okay. We don't talk about taxes and income taxes and mortgages and business structures. This is not in the subject matter in American government schools. And that's pretty much where we all started our journey into adulthood, was just having graduated an American government school, and God help us all for that. Okay, I'm gonna get off my soapbox. So first, I want to talk a little bit about the history of Blue Ribbon. Okay, I want to give you the context because, especially with TikTok, there's a bunch of people that are here for the first time. They've just minding their own business, and their thumb just stopped in the wrong place. And here we are. Hey, I'm Chris. This is Blue Ribbon. Okay. But I want to give you a little bit of the history. Okay. Because we have to talk about Larry, right? Larry is the founder and former owner of Blue Ribbon. He was a serial entrepreneur who was a professional photographer for 30 years. He had an extensive background in the automotive industry. He was kind of a guy that would be paid to go in and clean up dealerships. This is back in the late 70s, early 80s, when they had some unfortunate economic circumstances of their own, not much unlike what we're dealing with today. And you had these dealerships that needed all of a sudden these parts and service departments to make money. And so Larry was brought in to turn things around. And so then the iPhone comes out. He sees the writing on the wall as a professional photographer that that's not going to be the best avenue for him going forward. So he retires. Doesn't have anything better to do, and he ends up driving a truck. And this is his truck on the screen. This is Metro, or JPEG as we call it. It was a 2007 Freightliner Columbia. We still have it. Unfortunately, it was wrecked a few years ago, and so it's in a sad state of disrepair. I would love to put this truck back together someday, just kind of as a homage to Larry and the beginning of Blue Ribbon. But Larry had a vision and a passion to help people. He was a teacher. Okay, that's what he loved to do. He loved to pass on his knowledge and experience to others. He did it in photography, and then he started doing it in trucking. But by about 2018, about 10 years in, he'd had enough. He'd had enough. He'd had enough of truck drivers. And so then, in the beginning, I'll put this out here. In the beginning, Larry, being a businessman, got into trucking, but didn't know anything about it. And about this time is when Kevin Rutherford started his show and his CMC, and Larry got to listening to Kevin. And so Kevin gave Larry a lot of these foundational principles to operate a trucking company on. And so they became friends, or friends to this day. And then I came along. Okay. I came along in 2018 having failed as an owner operator, and it was my fault. There wasn't anybody else to blame. I couldn't blame, Landstar and the agents and the president and Congress and FMCSA and the ELD and the brokers and all the things that you hear truck drivers complain about. None of that had anything to do with the failure of my business. It was 100% me. And so, I made a Facebook post in January of 2018, basically saying that, hey, it was my fault. I did this. Larry hired me. not with a plan, just he needed a driver and I seemed like the guy that he needed. And over time, we began to realize that we had that same passion, that we shared that mission to help first time owner operators get past that failure point. And so I began driving for Blue Ribbon in March of 2018. I drove until September of 2021. And since then, I have been the full time fleet manager and director of operations. So we had a lot of fun in our time of running Blue Ribbon. We had live events. We really we really enjoyed our time together. Larry had some medical issues in 2024 and just got to the point where he needed to step down. But the whole foundation for me came from Larry because Larry is a businessman. Larry takes the operation of a business very, very seriously, and that has continued under the new ownership with Blake. Okay, so let's say you don't have a truck, you don't have a trailer, you're thinking about, I want to own a truck. Okay, I want to go into business for myself. Well, there's essentially, and remember, these are the basics, guys. Basics. There's basically three options for you. You can be a sole proprietor and you can take in this money that you receive from customers or from the carrier that you're leased to. You can take this money in as you run it under your social security number. Okay. And then you are going to receive the money and then you are going to pay the expenses. And at the end of the year, you are going to have a profit, hopefully a profit and not a loss. That profit is going to be subject to taxation. Okay. There's no way around it. If you make money in the United States of America, you are going to pay taxes. Okay. With this idea that we're going to come up with this super, strategy, then we're not going to pay any taxes. Guys, please stop. Okay. That is insane. Now, are there ways to pay less taxes? Yes, there are. Excuse me. So we can set up an LLC, and y'all, this is very, very simple to do. Okay. Most states, hell, West Virginia has one. And if West Virginia has one, you're in good shape. You go onto the Secretary of State's website, you answer some questions, you fill out the forms, and they will email you articles of incorporation. And you now have an LLC, and you get a tax identification number from the IRS. And now we're going to bring that money in to our LLC. And that LLC is going to receive money, and the LLC is going to spend money. And at the end, there's going to be taxation based on that profit. Because remember, taxation is a punishment for doing well. The LLC, now let's not get carried away with all this. I mean, it says it's literally called a limited liability corporation. But the chances that you're going to do this in a way where liability is not going to pierce the corporate veil, as they say, and come after you if you do something dumb. So kind of get that out of your mind. All of this is about taxation. If taxation didn't exist, I'm speaking it, Lord. If taxation didn't exist, none of this is an issue. Okay. You would just be a person that makes money and spends money, and what's left over is yours. You wouldn't have a thieving gang to come after you and make you pay your penance. Okay. Then we have LLC with a subchapter S election. Okay. So really we're looking at two options. You're either going to be a sole proprietor and you're going to run this under your own name, or you're going to have an LLC. And then inside that LLC is what's called a subchapter S-corporation election. Now, when you're a sole proprietor, and this is a fair warning, I'm going to get out our friend to BSE 9000 here in a little bit. Okay. Because the one thing the calculator never does is it never lies to you. You can run your business as a sole proprietor without any issues, right? Let's use Landstar for an example. Okay. You can buy a truck and you can sign up through the Landstar process, and you and your truck can go work and make money and do whatever you want to do, and everybody's going to be happy and everything's going to be fine. Where the problem comes in is if you operate that truck at a high level, as you should, and you start generating what you should, which is going to be between probably 200,000 and 350,000. Okay. That's the total amount of money that truck should make, $200,000 to $300,000. Well, you pay your fuel, you pay your maintenance, you pay your insurances, and you pay your licenses, and you pay your tolls, and you pay all these things. We have clearly established that you should be able to have a net profit as a single truck owner operator of $150,000 to $200,000 taxable. Okay. Everybody says, what about taxes? Taxes are not a business expense. Again, they're a punishment for doing well. Okay. So you can't write off your taxes, not your income taxes. So that's not an expense. Fuel's an expense. Maintenance is an expense. License is an expense. Insurance is an expense. Your cell phone's an expense, and your tools are an expense. But taxes are not an expense. They're what you pay after all the expenses have been paid. So the problem, and why we don't ever recommend someone run a trucking business as a sole proprietor, is that all of your income, or I'm sorry, all of your profit is going to be subject to the 15.3% self-employment tax. Okay. Well, if you make $150,000 or $200,000 a year net profit, and all of that money is taxed at the highest rate, y'all, that's a big tax bill. And that's usually what gets a lot of people. It got me. In my second year, 2012, I made $10,000 more than I did in 2011. And my expenses were about $10,000 less. I had a $20,000 swing, but that $20,000 swing tore my head plumb off. Okay. And by the time it was all said and done, I owed the IRS $50,000. We just paid it off about a year ago. Okay. So that's why we tell you, this is not something that we're going to mess around with. Okay. We're going to take this seriously because it's serious business. All right. Limited liability corporation. Okay. This is not complicated. It's a private limited company. It does have limited liability, but let's just get that out of our minds. The big thing is the pass-through taxation. When we take our LLC and we do the subchapter S election, that allows you to pay yourself a salary. Okay? So you set up your LLC, you do the subchapter S election, which is just a form you fill out. Okay. And you send that in, and boom, you're an S-corp. Well, now the LLC that you own can pay you as a driver on a W-2. When you pay yourself as a driver on a W-2, now the only thing that is subject to that 15.3% tax is your driver income. All of that other profit is now taxed as a dividend. It's just money that you're taking out of the corporation. So this is why it's best to do it this way. Now, there is a mathematical consideration to make here. If you're going to make less than $65,000 net profit, just be a sole proprietor. Because to set up the LLC, to set up the subchapter S, now that you have to file a corporate tax return in addition to your personal tax return. My guy charges $850 to do that corporate tax return. Okay. So you have to think, okay, well, am I going to save enough by splitting my profit, driver pay versus dividend? Am I going to save enough money in taxes to make it worth the extra work and the extra expense that I'm going to have filing a corporate tax return? And so what we've always come up with was about $65,000. You get above 65, which we think you should be at least at 150. If you'll buy a truck and operate it full time, you should be at 150. Well, at 150, it's a no-brainer. Okay. But there's probably people struggling just to do 150 gross. Dude, we do 150 gross in 6 months, right? I mean, you know, we're talking about profit. Profit is the only thing that is subject to taxation. So as we're making this decision, every time that we have every time that we do sorry, I'm trying to mess around with this stupid thing. Every time that we do a driver interview, okay, the very first question that I ask them is, why do you want to be in business? Okay. Had a guy there, man, I love driving trucks. I'm just a great truck driver. Okay. All right, great. You're a truck driver. What about the other 85% of things that are involved in running a business that is not driving the truck? Driving the truck is about 15% of running the business. What about that other 85%? Well, you know, man, I'm a great truck driver. I like driving around and seeing the trees, and that's great. Y'all, that's not running a business. It's not. It's driving a truck. So we begin the conversation. If you want to come to Blue Ribbon and run our program, I have to know that you understand that we're talking about going into business. Because if you don't, boy, you're going to struggle. Okay? You're just going to struggle. Because we have the expectation that you're going to act like, or begin to act like, someone that's running a business. That's what you're here to do. You're here to abandon the employee mentality and take on the mentality of a business owner. So when we're talking about setting up this future business that we want to do, we have to start thinking further than just getting my hands on the truck and getting in the driver's seat. Okay? Because there's so much outside the driver's seat that is required and is absolutely necessary and cannot be ignored. And if you ignore it, it will be at your peril. I have not been shy over the years about saying that I believe that self-employment is the greatest liberty that you will ever achieve. It's the greatest level of freedom that you can ever achieve. But if you do it wrong, it will destroy your life. It will destroy your life. It destroys your family, your relationships, your finances. When you do business wrong, that's what happens. So you have to have a long-term strategy. So my advice would be to have a 5-year, before you ever buy a truck, you need to say, okay, well, over this 5 years, I'm going to get my truck, and I'm going to, learn how to run my business and create all of the new habits that are necessary. Because there's so many things in running a business that don't matter to an employee, nor should they. You don't, when you're an employee, you don't have those responsibilities, but now you're in business, and now you do have those responsibilities, and you can't ignore them. And if you don't have daily those habits, like here's an example. The people in our program are required, and there's no gray area and there's no grace. Before you leave the fuel island, when you get fuel, you will scan a copy of your receipt and you will log the transaction in fuel gauges. That's non-negotiable. Now, is that because I'm just a hard ass prick that wants to make people do what I say? No. Well, a little bit. It's because when my truck blew up in 2017 and I had to clean it out and walk away from it. Oh, the receipts that I found under the bed and in the floor and behind the cabinets. You have to do it right now. Right now, we're not going to stick it in our pocket. We're not going to put it in our wallet. We're not going to throw it on the dash. If it's in my hand, it's going to get scanned. And it's going to get logged because listen, y'all, I can tell you from experience, trying to go back a month later and catch up all your transactions when you could have just done it 30 seconds at a time every day. And now it's a month later and you've got this giant pile of steaming dog crap that you've got to sift through and go, okay, well, what did I do that day? And oh man, I bought a part. Where's that invoice? Just do it now. Just do it now. Okay? Because I promise you're going to regret it later. So it's about setting up those habits. Okay? So we're going to start a new business. So first thing we're going to need is go onto the state's website and we're going to set up an LLC. We're not going to pay somebody $500 or $1,000 or $1,500 to do it for us. We're going to figure out how to do it on our own at no cost. I'm sure, I'm convinced that every state has somebody you can call. Hey, I want to set up an LLC. Oh yeah. Go to the website and push this button, push that button, and boom, you're done. You're an LLC. Then you get your tax identification number from the IRS. That's not all that difficult. Well, everything dealing with the IRS is difficult, but you can manage. You'll get there. And now when we go buy this truck that hopefully, God, we're going to pay cash for. Okay. Stay away from LOEN Mountain. You don't need one of their trucks. And if you absolutely insist on borrowing money for a truck, $1,000 a month maximum payment, no longer than 36 months. You do not need a new truck. You do not need a warranty. Okay. You need to spend $35,000 to $45,000 max on your first truck. I'm going to tell you to spend 10. Okay. I'm going to tell you to spend 10 to get your first truck. All right. And then we're going to, and then we're going to do a little rehab work on it. Okay. And the newer emissions trucks have come down in value, right? The used market is not doing that great right now, that means that's the time to buy, buy low, sell high. So we're going to get our truck, and then I'm going to tell you to lease it to a carrier. Now, I prefer Landstar. I've been at Landstar for 10 years. Y'all have feelings about Landstar, and I don't care. Okay. I don't care what your feelings are about Landstar. Couldn't care less. I don't care what your buddy said or your friend said or, doesn't matter to me. We've been here 10 years. We are incredibly successful. Does Landstar have issues like every company? Yeah, absolutely. They are. But we're going to get a truck and hopefully we're going to pay cash for it. And hopefully we're going to have this is insane. I know we're going to have an emergency fund before we start. Now, if you have to run like if you live in California and you have to run a truck that has complicated emissions on it, you need to have about 20 grand in the bank. Okay. Because when these trucks have problems, I didn't say if these trucks have problems. I said when. Okay. Because number one thing you got to learn about running a business is you are going to have trouble. You are going to have trouble. Things are going to break. Loads are going to cancel. Things out of your control are going to happen. And there's one person on this planet that is responsible to get you through that trouble. And it's you looking in the mirror and going, all right, buddy, me and you going to fix this problem. Okay. I prefer 99 to 07 Freightliners as the first truck. That's my preference. Okay. And I can back that up with data, lots and lots of data. That's what I prefer. They are cheap. They are reliable. They are efficient, and they are incredibly easy to work on. Okay. I know a bunch of y'all love your long hoods and your Pete's and your Kenworths, and okay, that's fine. All right. But as I've always said, in business, if we've got to put wax paper on the seat to keep your candy ass from sticking to it, you're probably going to struggle in business. Okay. Now, do I, as a truck driver, I've been one since 1997. I'm a boy. I like trucks. I love Peterbilt's 379s and W9s and them big square hood internationals. A one stack Mac with a window in the back. I've been around. Okay. As a driver, do I like the 99 to 07 Freightliner? Hell no. They're hot and cold and they rattle and they ride rough, but boy, do they make money. And I mean, I mean, lots of it. Okay. But we're going to pick a truck. Hopefully it doesn't have a Packard engine in it. Okay. Stick with Cummins in Detroit, y'all. We just stick with Cummins in Detroit. But we got a truck. Now I'm going to tell you need to lease it to a carrier. Okay. I don't want to give away all my money to take off 35%. The risk level, and it's all it is. The risk level that you're going to encounter trying to start from day one with your own numbers, y'all, that is a massive mountain to climb. Are there some that do it? Yes. Are there some that have done it? Yes. But y'all, I want you to look across the landscape. Okay. It looks like a graveyard. Okay. Cause the whole landscape is littered with the corpses of dead trucking companies. When you lease to a carrier, a good one, Landstar, Mercer, hell, maybe even Schneider. I don't know as much about Schneider's. I probably should, but I know Landstar, Mercer, and y'all, there's 500,000 trucking companies in America. I bet you there's a little, 25, 50 or 100 truck company that's run really well by good people that you could lease your truck onto so that you can learn these lessons. Because, brother, are you going to learn? You're going to learn. Okay. And there's a bunch of you are so bullheaded and stubborn. You're going to learn the hard way. I'm talking about me. Okay. You're going to learn the hard way because when you get into business, there is nobody to wipe your butt for you. The government's not going to do it. The customer's not going to do it. They couldn't care less whether you survive beyond tomorrow. It doesn't matter to them. The brokers, it doesn't matter. Even the good ones. I saw Steve Vest in here. I have made friends with some really, really high quality human beings that are brokers. But to an extent, that doesn't matter to them whether you succeed or fail. And so when something happens, you're going to have to figure it out, which is why we built this program to give people an opportunity. Come and drive for us. We'll pay you on a W-2. You're not responsible for anything financially, and we'll show you how this works. and you get to see how the sausage is made, and maybe you go, ooh, yuck. Maybe maybe I don't want to be an owner operator. I see comments over here on TikTok talking about Schneider. I figured that was probably a waste of time, but I said it out loud anyway. Um, you have to understand that you have to be self-sufficient in business to survive. Okay. Now, I'm on duty 24/7, 365. And when one of my people has a problem, I have the experience to go, oh, okay, well, do that. Right. I know what to do next. I had a guy overheat, right? He's climbing a hill on 68 in West Virginia. And he was like, hey, man, the truck just shut off and it's 230 degrees. And I'm like, well, okay. And he's like, well, I can't find a leak, but I don't have any coolant in it. All right. So I made a couple of phone calls and I found somebody to come out, and it was a little fitting under the bunk, and all the coolant had drained out, and $792 later we were moving. Um but I have been through this so many times. When a driver calls me and, hey, the truck won't start, it won't run, won't this, won't that. Well, I've got the experience that I know how to handle that, right? Um, let me tell y'all a funny story I've told before, but some of y'all are first timers. My wife tells this story better than I do because she only heard my side of the conversation. Phone rings about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm dead to the world. Yeah, hello. Truck won't start. Okay. Trying to get awake, trying to get the juices flowing. Okay. Truck won't start. Okay. Wait a minute. Will it start? Will it not start? Or will it not crank? And well, it won't crank. Okay. What's your voltage? 12 volts. Wait, man, you got 12 volts. The thing should be cranking. Y'all, where my subconscious came up with this at 3 o'clock in the morning from a dead sleep, I went, push the clutch in. And I heard the engine crank over and start. And I said, your truck was in gear, and hung up. Yeah. I'm not gonna say I've seen it all, whew, but I feel like I've seen about 85% of the stupid things that truck drivers can get themselves into, right? And those of y'all that drive the automatics, you found out what happens when you back into your space and you shut the truck off, and you forgot to turn the little thing from R to N, and then overnight the air pressure drains off. And then the next morning, the truck won't start because it's in reverse. And the only way to start it is to get somebody to come out and fill the tanks up with air. And now it has air pressure, and now it will take itself out of reverse, and now it will start. That's $500 minimum, right? And you decide, okay, well, man, this feels expensive. I don't want to run the engine tonight, so I'm going to turn on a box fan, and then the box fan runs your batteries down. And then next morning, my truck won't start because my batteries are dead. That's $350 minimum. Had one back in February. He let the truck freeze down to -10, and he called me, hey man, the truck won't start. And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. And man, the Love's guy just walked by and said he thinks it's froze up. Well, it froze up. Well, I look at that location's temperature, and it was -10, and I'm like, yeah, yep, -10. 4 days. 4 days to get that truck started. 4 days. $1,000 for the first day, 2,000 for the second, 3,000 for the fourth, the third, and 4,000 for the so $4,000 in lost revenue. Well, probably more than that because he was Conestoga. Hell, he lost a $3,500 load the first day. I ended up getting a towing company to come and pick the truck up by the steer axle and drag it across the parking lot to get it started, because I had run out of options dealing with Love's top tier mechanics. Okay, we've gotten off on a tangent. I'm gonna get back on let's get back on the highway here. Let's get back on the road. If you're going to be in business, you better take it seriously. Okay. Now, let's talk about the thing that has had all my comment sections all lit up all week, W-2 versus 1099. Okay. Now we've already talked about that when you own a business, and it could be a trucking business, it could be a construction business, it could be a landscape business, it could be a doctor's office, it could be a restaurant. A business is a business is a business. Okay. When you have a business and you hire employees, not according to me, according to the IRS, when you hire employees, you are required to pay them on a 10, I almost said it, on a W-2. Okay. That's the requirement from the IRS, not from me. I didn't make it up. It's not my term. I didn't come up with it. They did. So I went to the IRS website and I started looking around, and I'm going to have to make this bigger so I can read it. Every employer engaged in a trade or business who pays remuneration, including non-cash payments of $600 or more for the year, all amounts, if any income, Social Security, or Medicare tax was withheld for services performed by an employee, must file a Form W-2 for each employee, even if the employee is related to the employer. From whom? Income, Social Security, and Medicare tax was withheld. Income tax would have been withheld if the employee had claimed no more than one withholding allowance or had not claimed exemption from withholding form on W-4. Okay. Now, 1099. File Form 1099 for each person to whom you have paid during the year at least $10 in royalties or broker payments, at least $600 in rents, prizes and awards, other income payments, medical and healthcare payments, crop insurance proceeds, cash payments for fish. I never knew this until I looked this up. Generally, the cash paid from a notional principal contact to an individual, partnership, or state, payments to an attorney, any fishing boat proceeds. In addition, use Form 1099 MISC to report that you made direct sales of at least $5,000 of consumer products to a buyer for resale anywhere other than a permanent retail establishment. Okay. Now let's look at the Form 1099. Okay. I don't see truck driver on there anywhere. I see rents, royalties, other income, fishing boat proceeds, direct sales totaling $5,000 or more, crop insurance proceeds, fish purchased for resale. Truck drivers not on there because truck drivers are employees. This is the Schedule C. Now, I'm sure this is really hard to read. Let me try to figure out how to work this thing. There we go. That'd be a little bit better. But the Schedule C, the Form 1040, is profit or loss from a business. Well, we have spent an awful lot of time in the last 43 minutes talking about businesses. Businesses have assets like trucks and trailers and garages and lots and terminals and buildings. So if you do not own a truck, you're an employee, period. If you drive a truck, you are a truck driver, and you are driving a truck that you do not own, you should be paid on a W-2, not a 1099. Okay? That's just the truth, whether y'all like it or not. And y'all say, oh, it's not true, and my buddy and me, and I did this, and 1099 is better, and I get more today. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because you can't fill out a Schedule C if you don't have a business. And I guess a little part of what really kind of chaps my ass about all this 1099 W-2 is I got all you posers. Okay. I got all you poser truck drivers that want to You want to have all the benefits of being in business while not actually being in business. And you want to play pretend like a little girl with a Barbie dollhouse. Y'all want to pretend while you're in business, while those of us that are actually in business and trying to do good work for our customers and for the market. And then we have you goofy little clowns running around talking about how, oh, I'm a 1099 contractor and I've got this sophisticated tax. Just wait till they get a hold of you. Just wait, because they're coming at some point. Now, I ran across this one right here. Okay. I found this fascinating. Some misclassified workers can attach Form 8919 to their income tax return to report uncollected Social Security and Medicare tax. Workers who believe that they have been improperly classified as independent contractors by an employer can use Form 8919, uncollected Social Security and Medicare tax on wages, to figure and report the employee's share of uncollected Social Security and Medicare taxes due on their compensation. So if you work for one of these crooks and one of these thieves that owns a truck or trucks or a trucking company and wants to pay you on a 1099, fill out that form, because they're going to have to go back and pay everything they should have paid. Okay? Because going back to the original thing here where we're talking about sole proprietor versus LLC and subchapter S, the self-employment tax, the 15.3, is divided into two. The employee pays 6.75 and the employer matches that. Well, if you let one of these clowns like the Chicago Mafia, that'll give you a Fred bill, give you a brand new logbook just by a push of a button. That helps. They're getting you to pay their taxes because you don't have an LLC. You don't have a subchapter SLS. You don't have a business. So you can't pay yourself a W-2 from the proceeds from this company that's paying you to be a driver. So you're going to get hit with 15.3% of your money plus your state tax. I did a whole video about this on TikTok, and I'll kind of go back over it. In July, our top driver earned $16,192. Okay, he had a great month. He had one really high-paying team load that his wife helped him with, and the rest of them were oversized. They were big money loads, but he made $16,000. That's the top line on his W-2. Okay? We had to pay an additional $1,870 or something on top of that. Now, if we would have just said, well, hey, man, great job making all this money for everybody. We're just going to pay you on a 1099. We'll pay you the $16,192, which gets us off the hook for the $1,880 or whatever that we paid. We just transfer that to him. Because bless your heart, if y'all think it ain't going to get paid, it's going to get paid. We paid for the truck. We paid for the fuel. We paid for the maintenance. We paid for the insurance. We paid for everything. What's he going to write off? His gloves? His tarps? Is he going to go buy a new chain binder? An oversized flag? How is he going to write off enough to make up that $1,800 in additional costs that he's going to have to eat that we're off the hook for? So I'm much more angry and frustrated with the employer that pays someone on a 1099 than I am the guy who receives it on a 1099. The guy who receives it on a 1099 just can't do math. Well, nobody can do math in America in 2025. So, that doesn't make you special. But when a thieving crook that owns a company and has decided to take on the responsibility of having an employee, and having an employee is a big responsibility. Because 24/7, 365, I'm thinking about these folks. I'm thinking about all the different things that are happening in their lives and how they've got to depend on us. Because if I don't hit that button, on Wednesday, they don't get paid on Friday. That's up to me. It's my responsibility to make sure that pay is correct and to make sure that there's money in the bank to cover that check that they're supposed to get. So when these thieving crooks, and y'all, this started 25 years ago. I did it. In 2000, I took a job for an owner operator leased to US Express, making 25 cents a mile with a 9-cent per diem. He told me all about how it was such a good deal for me. I was 24. But I got to drive a brand new W900L with a 6NZ and the studio sleeper and the couch and the 13 speed, and it would run 100 miles an hour. I was 24. Okay. Some of y'all don't have that excuse. Okay. Because it's just math, right? Now, math alert. No one be alarmed. And I meant to bring my wallet in out of the truck because I wanted a visual representation. Y'all, tax write-offs are giving someone $1 to keep from giving the government a quarter. Okay, you're in a 25% tax bracket. In order to get a quarter from the government, you have to give somebody $1. Get a quarter from the government, give somebody $1. Well, that's fine if you're giving someone $1 for something that you actually need. Well, I need to buy some fuel to haul this load. Okay. And the government will say, we will not tax you on those dollars that you have received because those dollars you spent on fuel or maintenance or insurance or license or whatever. Write-offs are not magical money. It's not manna from heaven dropping out of the sky. It's you being convinced through consumerism to go spend money you don't need to spend to get back money from the y'all. Can we think about how silly that sounds? Oh, I'm going to give somebody $500 so I don't have to give the government $112. Again, it's one thing if you actually have to make the expenditure, but to just dream up. I mean, y'all, wait, can we? I know logic and critical thinking is not allowed in America anymore, but y'all are talking out of both sides of your mouth. You get that, right? You're saying, well, I don't want to pay taxes. Just screw that. Okay, I'm with you. I don't care if anybody ever pays taxes. There's no morality in paying taxes. All right? There's no, congratulations, gold star. You paid more taxes than this guy. But to manufacture write-offs and spend money you don't have to spend just so that you can not have to send the government a quarter, that's insane. So back to our example with our driver, okay? If we paid him on a 1099, he is going to incur not only an additional $1,800 in costs, no workers' comp, no unemployment insurance. He's a contractor. He doesn't get any of the legal protections afforded to him as a worker in the United States. God, I hate that word, worker. Sounds like communism. Okay? But again, don't be alarmed. I have a calculator. So, in order to get one too many buttons. In order to get $1,800 worth of savings, we're going to divide by 0.25 because that's pretty much the tax bracket. So he's got to spend $7,200. He's got to give it to somebody. So he got $16,192 in a check. We didn't withhold any taxes out of it. We just give it to him. Here you go, 1099 contractor. Well, in order to recover the cost that we pushed onto him, the responsibilities that we avoided, he's got to write off $7,200 worth of expenses to get that money back. Y'all, come on now. Come on now. It's just math. Okay? If you don't own a truck, you're not responsible for paying for fuel. If you don't own a truck, you're not responsible for paying for maintenance. If you don't own a truck, you're not responsible to pay for the base plate. If you don't own a truck, you're not responsible to pay the IFTA taxes. If you don't own a truck, you're not responsible for any of that. You're just a driver. That's it. And employee drivers, shouldn't have to pay their employer's taxes. Now look, I don't find unemployment insurance and workers' comp and all these things to be the magical or worth the money that's spent on them. But if you're a contractor, and you get hurt, you're on your own. You're on your own. Which is part of the reason that we go into business. In business, we take additional risks in order to get a greater return, right? When we're an employee driver, we don't have any risk, or we shouldn't have any risk. You shouldn't have any risk as an employee. Your employer should be shouldering that risk. But for whatever reason in trucking, we whine and cry about how terrible it is and all OTR sucks and I just live in this truck and I don't make any money and it's awful and I hate it and it's terrible. But I want to go work for the Russians so they'll give me another 70 hours. I want to go work harder for less money and no sleep and get paid on a 1099 and not have any worker protections. And I want to pay my boss's taxes for him. Come on. Are y'all serious? That's insane. And if you're doing oh, well, hey, come over here, buddy. Listen, we'll do a deal here and I'll make you a contractor. And listen, I'll just give you some money and you can pay for the fuel and y'all need to learn how to ask a question. 2 words. 2 words. Who benefits? Who benefits? Just ask that question over and over again. I know it'll take a while because we're so hopelessly brainwashed in this country. But just ask the question, who benefits from this deal that you're doing with some shyster. Oh, man, listen, we'll do a lease purchase contract. Okay. Now, of course, the truck's mine and I hold all the value and and if anything happens to you, I get to keep all the money and all the benefits, you know what I'm saying? But we'll do a lease purchase deal here, right? And and so you'll have all the money, and you pay for the fuel and all that stuff, and man, it'll be great. And you'll be a 1099 contractor. Oh, just think of all the tax benefits that you'll get. Listen, I may have been born in the dark, but it wasn't yesterday. Okay. This is very simple. Okay. If if you can't work for an employer that's going to treat you fairly and pay you legally, what do you think is going to happen when something goes wrong? Have y'all noticed in 2025 that trucking has become the biggest target for ambulance chasing lawyers? See, they got all that blood out of the tobacco industry a few years, and now it's trucking. So if a guy hires you to drive his truck and pays you on a 1099, what you reckon's gonna happen when something goes wrong? When there's a wreck or a fire, or somebody gets run over? Maybe it's you. What do you think is gonna how do you measure the integrity of the person that's gonna blatantly ignore the most vicious, aggressive, and well-funded collection agency on the planet? What you reckon's gonna happen when you get hurt, something goes wrong? You reckon that's the person that's gonna have your back? Hmm? Oh, sure, maybe they will. They're honest as the day is long. They understand complex tax strategies, that you simpletons don't. You simpletons that don't understand. Y'all just don't understand how the real people take care of business. Well, listen, I've been actively involved in the operation of this business for about 7 years. And I can promise you, clowns, that I've forgotten more than most of you knuckle draggers will ever hope to learn. And I'm learning more every day because I know that the level of knowledge that I have right now needs to be more than it was yesterday. And tomorrow, I need to be going to learn more. What I'm not going to do is sit around and pretend like, uh, oh, well, that's it. That's it. This is the best it'll get. Nobody wants to think about what happens when things go wrong. If your entire business strategy is, hey, man, as long as everything works, it's going to be great. You can't run a business like that. Bizarre things are going to happen. But the insane, unreal, weird stuff that will happen to you when you're in business. It's like your windshield wipers never stop working when the sun is shining. Your windshield wipers quit working in the middle of a rainstorm. That's when that happens. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? I'm in a torrential downpour and my windshield wipers no longer do this. Blown transmissions, blown wheel seals. The Redbeard had a great video the other day about the guy who had this beautiful international. I think he had a hopper bottom trailer, and had some issue, and the truck burned to the ground. I mean, it was a nice truck, right? Beautiful truck. Burned to the ground. And the insurance says, "Oh, yeah, well, you know what? That was a mechanical failure, and we don't cover mechanical failures." And then Redbeard got a hold of them, and I'm hoping that he has turned them inside out, and upside down, and make them understand, "Oh, yeah, you're gonna pay it." Okay, but beside, let's say they wrote him the check. It's hard to pull a trailer with a truck that has been burned to the ground. So who's gonna pay the light bill? Who's gonna pay the rent? I went through it. I had 2 blown engines from December of 15 to April of 17. Lost 2 engines. The first one we got through. The second one we did not. And it was over. And there I sat in tears on the phone with a Swift recruiter. Because, I mean, hell, if you can't do anything else, go to Swift. I mean, if you can't get a job, go to Swift. And I drove for Swift for 30 days and lived to tell about it. But when that truck broke on that cold, gloomy April morning in Scranton, Pennsylvania, I didn't know where was the next grocery bill gonna come from. How we gonna pay the mortgage? What's gonna happen? Being in business is hard. It's worth it, but it's hard. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. And when I see people not taking it seriously, and then on top of that, they don't take it seriously, and then they blame everybody on earth but themselves. Oh, these brokers are taking all my money, and the president sucks, and the Congress and the FMCSA. Well, I mean, the FMCSA is the root of all my problems, but I gotta go get on my knees before the FMCSA because they got to do something. Won't you do something? You ever thought about that? What if you did something? You know, because I mean, at this point in the history of the world, God help you if you think the U.S. government's going to help you. I mean, surely we're beyond that, right? And so there are a lot of people, myself included, that spend a lot of time trying to say, "Hey, here's my experience. Here's my experience, and here's what's happened. Here's what we've done." And what we get in return is, "You don't know what you're talking about because my buddy said, but he doesn't like Landstar and the brokers are taking 60% of the rate." Now I have absolutely no evidence that that's the case, but it sounds good. Oh, it sounds good, and it fills my heart with joy to just make up numbers and nonsense out of thin air. And then I find an echo chamber with a bunch of other people, the mouth breathers, and there's drill coming out there. The brokers take all my money. It's 60% of the rate. Okay. All right, then. In my 10 years at Landstar, I have found that if you succeed, it's your fault. And if you fail, it's your fault. I have watched people graduate our program either as a master class like employee or as a mentoring client. I have watched them come out from under our influence and our structure because they no longer had anybody holding them accountable. They didn't have anybody cracking that whip, and it was sad. I had one who I think the world of. He's an amazing human being, and he cried literal tears on my shoulder the day that he sold the truck because he got in a hole he couldn't get out of. It sucks. And it could have been prevented. And he knows it. He will tell you to your face right now, well, yeah, I could have and didn't. I didn't work hard enough. I stayed home too much. Oh, well, the wife and the kids and because when it ends, it almost always ends badly. I saw a Landstar post on Facebook, somebody that 17 years or something at Landstar and husband and wife team, big money people, government loads, AA&E. Dude had a stroke and they're like, okay, well, this is the end. Now, I don't know them personally, but just I know some AA&E folks. And for the most part, you want to talk about people that take stuff serious? That's them. So I'm sure they've probably made all their money and, but it's still sad because it came to an end. But it's a whole lot nicer to plan the end and say, okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna wind this down. But two things can't be true at once. Landstar is the sole problem with my business. Well, we're at Landstar. There's 8,000 or 9,000 other people that are Landstar. What if Landstar or the brokers or the market or the president or the government or the FMCSA, whatever your list of boogeymen, if that was true, well, we would have the same problems you do. But we don't. So maybe you ask the question, well, why is it that they're not having the same problems that I am? They don't have problems with agents and they don't have problems with this and they don't have problems. Why do they not have the problems that I do? Well, this is episode 243. We're an hour and 12 in. But dude, a bunch of the first couple hundred were 2 hours, 3 hours long, and we talked about all of this. I got hundreds of videos on TikTok. And we talk about all of this. You got to be curious. And curiosity is one of the things that has unfortunately been beaten out of this society in government schools. There's no curiosity. How does that work? Where did that come from? How does that? And then you don't go look for the first thing that sounds good to you or confirms your existing bias. You search and you dig and you go talk to people with experience. Because the people with experience will say, oh, well, hey, yes, you can do this thing, but watch out for this and watch out for that and watch out for that. Because they've been down that road. We don't ask for directions much anymore these days because we've all got GPS. Okay. But when I started in the industry in 1997, there was no GPS. And the CB was our lifeline. And so you'd be sitting in any truck stop at any time. And of course, one thing you'd always hear, hey, what's the name of this town? Because they wanted to write it on their logbook. You didn't know where you were. You didn't have a dot on a map on your phone to say that you were in Effingham, Illinois, or you were wherever. Did you just get on, hey, break 19, what's the name of this town? Hey, has anybody ever been to this place here? Break 19 for local. Bunch of y'all ain't heard that. Break 19 for local. Yeah, go ahead, local. Hey, y'all ever been to this Chicken plant over here? Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Well, what you gotta do is you gotta go up north on the US highway, but don't take that first road because then you're gonna end up in a place you don't wanna be. You gotta go up to the, 2 more lights and you gotta take it right, and you're sitting here writing this stuff down. So there's a lot of stuff that comes from that old way, um, that's baked in, you know? And our okay, so we had a funny exchange. There was a guy there was a guy commenting on one of my TikToks who had some trucks and had hired some drivers. Well, he got chewed up by the IRS, and they froze his accounts and the whole thing, and he was like, "Well, I'm on 1099 right now, and I don't know what to do because I've got accidents and tickets or whatever. So I can only work for this bottom feeder." And somebody said, "Well, hey man, go to Western Express, they'll hire you." And I went, "Oh, stop. Okay, so there is something worse than 1099. Okay, Western Express is certainly worse than any 1099 operation you could ever run into." But y'all, I have noticed. Excuse me. I have noticed that. Let me try this example. So I'll be scrolling through my comments or whatever. How do I get in touch with you? Send me a DM. Can you call me, please? I have questions. Well, let me promise y'all. If there's one thing I'm not ever going to do, I'm not going to call you. Okay. It's not happening. We have a website. We have a YouTube channel. We have a TikTok channel. We have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram, but not anything on it. If you go to the TikTok profile, there's a link that you can click that has a whole page of downloadable spreadsheets and how to send us an email and our website and Pittsburgh Power and like it's all there. But if you can't muster the curiosity, of, hey man, well, this blue ribbon guy has said some stuff. I do that. I say lots of stuff. Well, man, this blue ribbon guy has been talking. He's started, and hmm, I wonder if he's got a YouTube channel. I wonder if he has a website. I wonder. Oh, look, he's got other videos. Let me go scroll through his other videos and see. Because you can go like on a TikTok. I think you can do this on Instagram too, but I'm not sure. But there's a little thing that you can click and it will show you that channel's most popular videos. Well, yeah, I've got one. I've got a couple of videos over 1,000,000 views. Mr. Singh in the YouTube, lunatic trucks are still a thing. I'm fighting like hell to keep them alive. I'm slaying constantly the people that want to say, "Oh no, no, you don't run those old trucks." I am still a 100% proponent of lunatic trucks. So if like, say you're on the TikTok and you're just scrolling by and you're one of the 198 people, and he went, "What's a lunatic truck?" I bet, I'm going to go to Google right now. Google.com. And I'm going to put in the search lunatic truck. Boom. So you want to buy a lunatic truck? Right there we are. What's a lunatic truck? Episode 93. Can you lunatic a new truck? Like Blue Ribbon Logistical Solutions.com. What is a lunatic? By the way, lunatic comes from early days. We had a driver. He was 25 years old. He did the opposite of everything we ever asked him to do. He was an insufferable prick. He was mean to agents because he was just 25 years old. I'm an old school trucker. Okay. I'm not going to lose my redneck attitude. Oh, let me promise you, buddy, you will. At some point, you will. Won't be me. But somebody's going to whoop that attitude out of you. But he said on the day that he came to bring the truck back, he goes, y'all are lunatics. And Larry went, yes, we are. We are lunatics because we don't do trucking. Like, y'all think about this, okay? Back to the very first part of the thing. When Larry Long comes into the trucking industry in 2008, 8 or 9, he's been a businessman for 30 years. Okay? Well, he starts to see, like, hey, man, I bet you could make some money in this trucking deal. And he finds out very quickly that trucking business is not done the way every other industry does business. And so when we just started going, okay, well, we're going to have a proper setup in the LLC, subchapter S, we're going to pay employees on a W-2. It was wild. How dare you? I can't believe you would pay an employee properly on a W-2. So we became lunatics. There's 9,000 trucks or 9,000 BCOs at Landstar, 8,000, not whatever. There's a number. I don't know what it is exactly, but there's at least 8,000 BCOs at Landstar. We are a BCO at Landstar. Now we have 9 trucks right now. And at Landstar, we are an anomaly. Okay. Multiple trucks is a square peg in Landstar's round hole. Pardon the, because for most of the time, it's one person with one truck, and that person and that truck are married together in the Landstar system forever. And then we come along and I go, hey, I'd like to move this driver from this truck to this truck. And they're like, what? Why are you going to do that? What do you mean? Well, I've hired a new driver and well, this truck's better suited for this freight. I'm going to move this driver over to this truck. Like we are the bane of their existence. Right. And I heard there was a guy that had 200 trucks or something like that. I think the biggest one is 25 or 30 right now. I'm going to warn you though. Be very, very selective. If you want to come and give Landstar a try and see what you think about it without buying a truck and go drive for a BCO, y'all be very careful because, there's some people that shouldn't own second trucks and third trucks and fourth trucks, but yet here they are and they'll put you in one. And if it doesn't go well, Landstar's not going to do anything about it. That's between you and your new employer. There was a guy the other day in a Facebook comments or Landstar Facebook group, and he's like, well, I'm ready to take that step and buy that second truck. I'm like, he's like, any advice? I'm like, oh, buddy, do I ever? Well, number one, 2 trucks are going to make less than 1. Okay. Because you were never, well, I won't say never because Larry did. He found me. But you will never find somebody that will drive your truck the way you do, that will run the freight the way you do. It's not going to happen. Okay. So just expect them to do about 50% of what they should. Okay. Truck drivers, boy, y'all better put your steel toes on. Truck drivers are selfish, ignorant, narcissistic, and will quit on you over nothing. And whatever they do to your truck will be your fault. Okay? So just get ready. Because owning trucks, operating trucks, and hiring truck drivers is not for the weak. It is not for the weak. You're going to find out. Oh, you're going to find out. And then you have to be endlessly flexible. For example, there's a comment somebody was asking about super singles. Y'all, I'm a huge fan of super singles. I don't care if you are or not. I love super singles. I love them. Love everything about them. But we have a truck, an 06 Freightliner that Phil bought years ago that had been double framed and turned into a 4-axle truck, and then he lobbed a fourth axle off of it, and we pulled some van freight with it. Well, it has an 18 speed, and it's got these big rear ends and stuff in it. We're going to set this truck up to pull a 3-axle flatbed so that it can run loads up to 114,000 pounds. Well, unfortunately, one super single drive tire will not carry the same amount of weight that a set of duals will. And so today, I had my little helper with me. My 10-year-old went up there with me, and he and I unbolted the super singles, and we put a set of duals on this truck that we had from another truck with the stupid crossfire, and it hook the thing together, and you can't get your hand in the middle, and then the thing, and it won't turn, and then you try to turn it, and then it gets hung, and you won't turn. I hate duals with a passion. With a passion. But my feelings about duals versus super singles don't matter when the truck needs to be set up to pull the weight. And so I cried just a littlest tear as I took the super singles off and put a set of duals. Right? It is what it is. You have to be flexible. Now, if I'm pulling a tanker, or I'm pulling a reefer, or I'm pulling a dry van, I'm 100% going to have as many super singles as I can get my hands on, because I love them. I love them. I love them in the snow. I love them in the rain and the ice and in the dry. I love super singles. They're awesome. They're no good in the snow. Well, I ran Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, and Connecticut for 4 years in the wintertime. Never had a problem. But again, when the calculator got involved and it says, okay, well, these tires are not good for this application, so gone. By the way, got a pretty good set of Michelin X-Line Energy super singles mounted on wheels, because I got a couple other trucks. Since we're moving the entire fleet to platform, I've got a couple other trucks that are going to have to go from single to dual. So holla at your boy. Do I have a... No, I don't. I was going to put my Chris at blueribbonlogistics.com. If you'd like a set of about 50% rubber, and you got some decent tires already on, only aluminum. I'm not doing any steels, but if y'all want to do a little horse trading, holler at me. So anyway, all right, well, let's jump into Q&A. All right. I'll roll through here. I'll start with YouTube, and then I'll go through TikTok and see what we come up with. DL, what's a good structure to protect your business so that a future wife can't take anything? Well, brother, come on now. You know better than that. They're going to get that. He's saying very, very competent prenup drafted by a very good lawyer. William Haynes, former blue ribbon driver. The government is the biggest mafia. They get a cut out of every transaction, buy or sell anything, pay taxes, own assets, pay taxes. Yep. Taxation is indeed theft perpetrated by a criminal gang worse than the mafia. Steve says, when you set your tire pressure monitoring system, what is your maximum for the temp setting? I have never really worried about that. Rocky and he have gone back here in the comments. I'm more concerned about the low pressure warning, really. Because underinflation is what kills tires. And if you run a tire pressure monitoring system in the wintertime, you will learn very quickly. It only takes about once or twice because tire pressure drops 3% for every 10 degrees in temperature. Well, we set our super singles for 130 degrees at 70. Well, that's 105 at 0. Okay. And so I learned that pretty quick. Before I go to bed, I turn that thing off because about 3:00 in the morning, as that temperature drops down below the low warning, that thing will start screaming and bring you out of a coma. What do you think of the Freedom of Transportation Act? Never heard of it. And if I did hear of it, I probably wouldn't care. I stopped believing in Santa Claus a long time ago. Let's see. Y'all still got wide singles? Yes, we do. You know, any portable air pump that works good to 150? Somebody said the Milwaukee probably would do it. That's M18 that would probably do that. Again, the Freedom of Transportation Act. Y'all listen, I could not, it's almost not possible for me to tell you how little I care about government acts. There's certainly never been an act of the government that's ever going to help me. I can promise you that. Felton J, how's the Lunatic 2.0 coming along? Well, Lunatic 2.0, okay, we've talked about Lunatic trucks. Lunatic truck is a 99 to 07 Freightliner, Century or Columbia with a Series 60 Detroit. Manual transmission, 342s, 358s, or a 264 with a direct drive 10-speed. But these trucks are 20 years old, right? It's hard to find truck drivers that can even drive these trucks. I mean, that's becoming a real thing because they have manual transmissions. And it's hard to find a truck driver that's not such a candy ass that they can't handle driving a truck, right? I mean, y'all, I was in the industry when the Century and Columbia came out, and it was revolutionary, right? So Lunatic 2.0, well, what are we going to do with the post-emissions truck? Well, number one, we take everything from 2008 to 2015 and we throw it in the garbage. They are absolute no-go. You could not give me a truck built between 2008 and 2015. Not happening. 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, they're manageable. Manageable. We need to run the Pittsburgh Power Catalyst. We have got to do regular inspections of the emissions system. You cannot have exhaust leaks ever. So you need to take that fairing off and get your flashlight in there. And if you see any soot, you got to fix it. Especially the one boxes. No, the Cummins does it too. If it gets an air leak and it gets what we call cold air inside that thing, y'all, it will wreak havoc. The Cummins is like 4 different sections, and there's a gasket with a big V-band clamp, right? You got to keep an eye on that stuff. There's just an extra level of preventative maintenance that you have to do with an emissions truck that you're going to have to be prepared to take care of. And so we have been pretty fortunate. We ran an 18 We have a 17. We ran an 18 Cascadia. We have a 17 International. And so far, knock on wood, we've done diesel force cleanings. We run the catalyst, oil samples, OPS. So far, so good. Let's see. Do we have? Okay, they're just talking to each other. All right, let's roll through. Boy, there's a bunch of TikToks. So let's see here. Now, some of y'all are going to be gone because you like drive-bys. I just got my CDL and got a 26 Mac from Lone Mountain. How do I start a trucking business? He's being funny. How Landstar goes about it with maintenance? Do they assist? Okay. Landstar has, you can sign up for a voluntary escrow. And I believe it's 1% of line haul that they will deduct from your settlement and hold for you. So, which y'all, it's not a great deal of money. It's probably $80, $60 to $100 a week. But if you would like some built-in discipline, they do have that. They also have contractor loans. Now they're based on your revenue. And so if you're phoning it in and you're running 1 day a week and 2 days a week and you're doing $3,000 a week and then you have a $10,000 event, they're going to put a very serious cap. I've seen them give $10,000, and I've seen them deny 6,500. Right. Now, obviously at one point we had 15 trucks running in the height of the market. Well, I mean, we were doing only 15, we were doing $120,000 in revenue a week. Well, of course, hell, we probably could have got 15,000, but when you're a single truck, if you're not out there working and they can't look through your history of settlements and see that you can afford a $400, $500 to $600 per week deduction for a contractor loan, they're not going to give it to you, but it's there. Been trying to contact you personally to understand what you can do for me. I need contact. Well, brother, I got a website, I got a YouTube channel, I got a TikTok page, and I got an email address. I need to text Steve and find out what this is. He says, unless you owe money, which I learned today, they won't issue you an LLC. One of my new agents found out. Unless you owe money. Money to who? What mileage would be okay for used trucks? Brother, I got one with 1.6 million on it right now. So I'm not the guy to ask about mileage. Hey, brother, doing onboarding with Landstar Ranger. Any pointers? Be patient and buckle up. I can only drive automatic. Well, listen, we have a guy we just hired, 24 years old. He had to pay a bunch of money, but he got his automatic restriction removed. All right, so it's possible. I don't understand not wanting to benefit from the purchase power of a larger carrier versus being solo. 100%. Here's the thing, okay? Y'all get obsessed with stuff that don't matter. Okay, everybody's like, "Oh, Landstar takes 35% of it." Okay, I do not for a second believe that our rates that we get would be as high outside of Landstar, and I don't believe our costs would be as low if we went and ran on our own numbers. Could we work ourselves up to that? Sure, at some point. But how long? 10 years? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. We had one load that paid $29,000. We didn't have to go beat that customer's door down. Phil got a phone call one day. Hey, we got a $29,000 load. Would y'all like to haul it? Yes, we would. What, where, and when? Well, my guys did an $11,000 load last week. Like, it's not that rate per mile isn't important. It's certainly something that we should be aware of. But you know what I care about a whole lot more than I do rate per mile? Cost per mile. Ours is very low. Even with paying the driver, we're like $1.60. You got people all over the internet. Okay, my cost per mile is $2.80, and somebody should pay me $4 a mile. Well, my cost is $1.60, and I'm still going to go after that $4 or $5 a mile freight. Are y'all looking for truckers from Texas? I'm not looking for truckers. I'm looking for people who are interested in learning how to run a successful, sustainable trucking business. And unfortunately, and I know I'm being facetious here and I'm taking advantage of your question, but listen, I'm not looking for truckers. I'm not looking for employees. Like, we don't hire people just to fill a seat. Because I would run, I'd go do something else. I'd go up to the shop and turn wrenches before I did that. Rocky says, "Can I drive for you? I can show up on time for a Zoom interview." Yes, you can, Rocky. You're hired. I just bought an international truck with an A26 engine. What do you think about the engine? Well, I saw it at the truck show, and it's very impressive. I would like to see one with 1,000,000 miles on it. And I would like to see a history of its maintenance after 1,000,000 miles. Then we'll talk. I have a DD15 in my fleet right now that has 1,000,000 miles on it, and we just did an overhead, and we took the valve cover off, and y'all, it looks brand new inside. It's incredible. The DD15 is an amazing engine. If we didn't have to put all that garbage that's behind the turbo on it, I bet a DD15 would go 5,000,000 miles. How can I contact you? Again, that's easy. I'm starting Landstar Monday after dealing with several Chicago foreign-owned companies. Whew. Listen, I mean, some of the stories that I've heard, but again, okay, let's go back to 1997, probably 98. I was driving for US Express. No, it wasn't. It was 97 because I was still with the very first company. And I got sick, sinus infection. And I was miserable. And y'all know there's nothing worse than being sick on the road. It sucks. And payphone, right? Remember, no cell phones. So I pulled in some truck stop. So I think it was the TA in Breezewood. It was because I ended up staying in a little hotel. Oh, I had a stomach bug. Y'all have had that. You want to talk about the least fun thing you can do on the road? Get you a stomach bug. So anyway, I called nighttime dispatch. I said, "Hey, y'all, listen, I have come down with stomach bug." And she said, "Well, that load has to get there." And I said, "Well, sister, it ain't going to get there before I do unless I go through the gate backwards. So I bid you good evening." And I hung up and went to bed. Are the Chicago trucking companies crooks and thieves? And yeah. But y'all, when we going to take some responsibility for our own decisions? I mean, you got a CDL. You can have a new job tomorrow. No. It's very simple and quick and easy. No, I'm not doing that. Well, we'll fire you. Okay. Where you want your truck? Fire me then. But again, I think that's some of that helplessness that's born of these government schools that just take all of the the creativity and stuff out of people. You ain't gonna make me drive a truck. You ain't gonna make me drive tired. Kiss my ass. I'm going to bed. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Oh, but I mean, my best friend worked for a BCO, by the way, got in hooked up in some stupid sand, oh, we call that stuff where they do the sandbox fracking out in Colorado in December, and it's, 900 degrees below zero and there's 12 feet of snow. And he was having problems with the brakes on his W900. And he said, dude, I can't drive this truck. The brakes are messed up. I'm out here in the snow and the sand pit and yada, yada, yada. And the guy was broke. He was an agent and a BCO. He was broke. So Zeke's like, well, dude, I'm not driving this truck until you fix the brakes. And here comes some guy that walks up, opens the door, yanks the key out of the ignition and says, you're fired. Out in the middle of Colorado, nowhere. Well, I need to go look that guy's name up and figure out where he's at if he's still at Landstar. How it happens. You better have a plan. You better have an emergency fund. What would be so wrong about saving up $1,000 and keeping it in the bank? And then if you end up with some crook or something, or you end up somewhere and somebody turns your fuel card off, okay, well, I'll just rent a car and go home. How about that? Could you get home every night with Landstar? Well, you could, but you're not going to with a brand new business. Listen, if you want to start a business and you still want to still be in business 5 years later, you're going to work harder for 3 to 5 years than you've ever worked in your life. Some of y'all that for whatever reason believe that you can buy a truck and work less than you did as a company driver, that's a level of delusion that needs medication. How to find fleets in Landstar. Rocky hit him. Most of them you wouldn't want to work for. That, unfortunately, that's true. Advice on getting a trailer when done with orientation. They promise you one in 3 business days. So here's what I'm going to tell you to do. You're going to get done with orientation. Let's say you go on Wednesday or Monday. All right, you're going to do orientation Monday and orientation Tuesday. The first thing you need to do on Wednesday is they're going to assign you these online classes to do. Get your ELD installed, get your stickers on your truck, and get those classes done. It takes a while. It's probably a day worth of stuff. Just get that done. They give you 15 days, but see, when you forget, you start running freight and you're out here doing your deal and you forget about those classes. And then one day you're in the middle of a load and it pops up and your truck's on hold. Oh, well, you have to complete these classes and you've got a bunch of loads. Just do that. So Monday orientation, Tuesday orientation, Wednesday, get all your online classes done. Make sure you're on the trailer list and then set you a load alert for SOS. Put in the agency code on the load board as SOS and save it 500-mile radius. And if an SOS load pops up and it's on a company trailer, you can go repower that load and you get to keep the trailer when you're done. What do you think about cryptocurrency? Big fan. I prefer duals over singles because duals get you off the shoulder. Okay, well, good luck with that. When you get DOT'd and pulled over and a bunch of CSA points and put out of service for having a flat tire, good luck. We've been running super singles since 2009. We have had 5 blowouts. And I figured up that day we've tracked, 5 or 6 million miles in fuel. So let's just call it 5 million miles. We've had 5 blowouts and 5 million miles where we've lost 1 rim. Okay. The savings The savings, over 5 million miles in fuel mileage from running those tires. I promise you it paid for that wheel. And it paid for the road call to have somebody come out and put a tire on it. EPA deregulation, y'all, again, I'll believe that when I see it. Quick question. What do you think about box trucks? Box trucks is a difficult market right now. Our new owner, Blake Chastain, they have a almost 30-year-old MC running expedited and box trucks. And he don't have any hair, but if he did, he would pull it out dealing with box trucks. It's a saturated market. The Sprinter vans have come in. The market has just shifted. That expedited box truck thing is a real minefield. I wouldn't do it. Maybe Landstar will pick up some of Carol Farmer's. Yeah, maybe. If you're driving currently for a BCO and want to buy a truck and become a BCO yourself, what's the process? Buy a truck and lease it on. Just go get you a truck, take it to a Landstar approved inspection facility. And if you're already driving, you're already qualified as an operator. And so you just go buy a truck. Is there an age limit for trucks? There's not. Now they may tell you 2000, but the reality is any truck with an electronic engine that can connect to an ELD. So that's going to get you back to 96, 97. Doing onboard with Landstar, any pointers? Nope. I've been doing it for 10 years and it sucks. We just hired 2 new drivers last week and I've had them in qualification for a month and a half. It is awful. Somebody said, CMC, what is your favorite part about Landstar? It ain't the qualification process. I can promise you that. What's my favorite part about Landstar? Freedom. The freedom. Let's say you go to Landstar orientation, okay, and you got your trailer, and you got your log into the board, and you get on the board, you set up a load alert, right? So you're in Indianapolis, you set up a load alert, and your phone lights up with a load, and you call, and you beat me to it, it's yours. I mean, there's no hierarchy. There's no, there was some idiot in my comment section the other day. Well, I know about Landstar agents and they have their own trucks and do this. No, it's all BS. None of that's true. But the early bird gets the worm. If you beat me to it, it could be an agent that I have a relationship with that I've known for years. And I'll call and she'll be like, man, sorry, somebody just got it. What tools does Landstar have to help new owner ops? They have tools. I've been trying like hell to make those tools better. And I'm going to BCO days in September and I'm going to try again to make them better. But their orientation is not, in my view, then it's not the best. It's filled with a bunch of corporate CYA. Yes, Your Honor, yeah, he ran over in a minivan, but look, we put him through training. He shouldn't have done that. I'm not a big fan of Landstar's orientation. I don't think it's anywhere near enough, especially given the capabilities of the people that are coming in. The basic understanding of the trucking market is among average people is next to zero. I just noticed that I have 53 unread texts, and I better make sure that nothing crazy has happened that I am not aware of, but looks like Phil and Barb have it all worked out. So I just thought, you know what? I better have a peek. Um, what are the requirements for lease to purchase if there is a program? Well, thank God there's not a lease to purchase. Lease to purchase is one of the dumbest and most risky things that you can do in the trucking industry. What lanes at Landstar do you find are better paying lanes than others? Well, anything that goes anywhere that somebody else doesn't want to go. And then, you know, we are transitioning the entire fleet to platform, right? Because of platform, there's no walls and there's no roof, so you can go high, wide, and heavy. So you know, if you want maximum money and maximum revenue, specialize yourself. Do flatbed. I have a friend that does um, specialized van. He's got blankets and bars and decking and um, lift gates, and I mean, there's so many ways. Here's the thing: when you run into the mouth breathers that talk trash about Landstar, understand that those people are never going to get to the specialized stuff. This the I mean, y'all, I've seen $30,000 freight bills. I've heard, I've not seen, I've heard about the maximum that a freight bill can be is $99,999.99, and there have been loads that had multiple freight bills. That means one load paid over $100,000. One load. Do hazmat loads pay better? Sometimes, but it's is there a difference between Landstar and Landstar Road? There's Landstar Inway and there's Landstar Ranger. Ranger. Quick history lesson. Back in the day, there were five, I think, separate companies: Interstate Freightways, Ranger, Gemini, Ligon, Pool. I think I'm missing one. Somebody will pop in if I'm. But anyway, in like 1987 or 88, some guy bought all of these, put them together. And now all that is left is Inway, Ranger, and Express America. Express America, Ligon. That's probably the one I forgot. Anyway, the Ligon and Gemini DOT numbers are still out there. They're not active, but it's pretty much Ranger and Inway. Inway trucks start with a 4. That's us. Ranger trucks start with a 5. And then there's Express America, which is the straight trucks. And maybe the hot shots. Fundamentally, there's no difference. Now, there are some kinds of freight or some customers that are only Ranger, like AA&E. You have to be Ranger. Government stuff. Like that's Ranger only. So if you're an Inway person and you wanted to go do that stuff, you have to requalify your truck as Ranger. But day to day, there's no difference. It's just two different DOT numbers. They got the fleet split in half. Are you required to have hazmat? Yes. Do they have limits on how long you can stay home with their trailer? Yes, 10 days. And they will come and get it. They won't call you. They won't ask you for your permission. They will drag your truck out from under it. If you leave their trailer sitting for 10 days and they come and they want it, they will come and get it. I haul cattle, and we now have the smallest national herd in decades. Any insights on that? I don't know nothing about cattle except eating them. Well, we are 1 hour, 59 minutes in. That's long enough for a Friday night that I didn't even plan on doing this. I've just been so aggravated and agitated by all the people spreading nonsense in my comment section. So listen, y'all still got questions? This is episode 243 on YouTube. And there's hundreds and hundreds of posts on TikTok. So if you have questions, start there. Be curious. Go through the YouTube, go to the website, go to all of the information and just watch. We will answer a bunch of your questions because we've been talking about this stuff for years. We started this version of the podcast in 2019. I started the audio podcast in 2015. So it's 10 years, almost to the day, since this information has been out there. So be curious. Go watch previous episodes, go through the TikTok. Lots of questions are answered there. And we will always be here for you. BlueRibbonLogistics.com is the website. YouTube.com/Blue Ribbon Logistics. TikTok, Blue Ribbon Logistics. Facebook, Blue Ribbon Logistics. Come and see us. We'll see you next time.